Police in Limpopo say that they're working around the clock to establish the whereabouts of 4 siblings who are sons of a businessman, Nazeem Moti. 6-year-old Zidan, 11-year-old Zayyad, 13-year-old Alaan and 15-year-old Zia Moti were allegedly abducted from their car en route to school in Polokwane on Wednesday morning. Following that story, we're now joined by psychologist Dr. Saths Cooper to talk to us about the trauma that comes with being in a situation like this and what to do when in a similar circumstance. A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Cooper. It's always a pleasure to have you with us here on the show.
Yes, this is a very terrible incident, and it's something that shouldn't be happening. Actually, we shouldn't be preparing ourselves for this kind of eventuality because we expect that there would be law and order and that this kind of incident will not happen. But here we are dealing with a situation like this where it must cause serious distress, shock, numbness, and all sorts of questioning by the parents and those close to them, including community members, the school. I mean, these are kids from 6 years, as you pointed out, into their early teens.
And Dr. Cooper, I mean, unfortunately, we are in this situation, and, although no parent wants to, think about a situation like this, we find ourselves in situations where, parents do need to think about those sort of situation. I mean, certainly panic sets in at a time like this. I mean, it's important maybe to discuss, you can't say parents shouldn't panic. It's their children at this time. They don't know the whereabouts of their children. What are the do's and don'ts? At this time, when we panic, we obviously do things we're not supposed to be doing and behave in ways we shouldn't. But what are the do's and don'ts in a situation like this, particularly for those parents?
Well, I think the first thing is to seek serious professional help so that they don't fall into any of those traps that can arise from what you're raising. The shock, the guilt, the blaming, the fear, and so on. The uncertainty will be phenomenal. No parent deserves this. I think it's also important to have trust in whoever is investigating the case, even though the levels of reliance on our law and order are so low. But there is help. I know that the psychological and related fraternities are ever willing to help, and make sure that you listen to the expert advice, that this too will pass. And hopefully it will pass where the kids are returned safely without serious harm. But it's also important to prepare for that eventuality and not blame and other numbness and panic that is going to result from this. Parents will go into a state of stupor, a psychic emergency will kick in. So it's almost like the fight response. Right. And it's important to use the adrenaline for improving one's own health as well as others in that environment.
Dr. Cooper, it's important also to analyze, and we obviously hope that these children are indeed reunited with their families as soon as possible. But, we also need to start to think about this long-term impacts that an incident like this will have on the children. They'll obviously be traumatized for long periods, possibly even into adulthood. I mean, what should the parents be doing at this time? I mean, certainly they are traumatized. Everybody would have been traumatized at the time. It also depends on how the kidnappers are handling the children, where they are, the circumstances that they're in. There's a lot of questions, obviously, around that, and it obviously is situational. But once those children do go back to their parents, what's the first thing that should happen?
I think that they will be, I'm pretty certain, shown the love and comforts that they need. But it's also very important to listen to good professionals, not anybody else, because of exactly what you've pointed out, Flo. There will be long-term sequelae, and we need to intervene earlier to be able to diminish the impact on those young lives, because nobody at whatever age, particularly that young age, needs to go through that kind of shadow in their future lives. And this can be dealt with, it can be ameliorated so that they can continue to enjoy their childhood, that they can continue to trust adults whilst expressing exceeding vigilance and care around who they engage with.
All right, Dr. Saths Cooper, always a pleasure having you on the show. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on this story and we'll be engaging you further on it. Thanks, as always, for giving us your time. Dr. Saths Cooper, clinical psychologist, speaking to us there. We're going to take a short break and I'll be back with you at the top of the hour.